Hey guys, welcome to this fight. This is probably the best fight I've had in the whole tank Brutix. It was pretty much the perfect fight for this ship. It was one of the earliest fights I had, and it's what got me addicted to this ship. Because after this, I kept chasing fights like this, like hoping I could get another one as good as this one, because this was such a fun fight. A couple things to note before we start. Well, we can go ahead and get started because, yeah, it's going to be a while before the fight actually starts. So the ships that I'm fighting against here are mostly Cormorants. 5 Cormorants, an Atron, and a Sabre. Everything but the Sabre is very, very cheap. Right now I'm kind of thinking and trying to decide how am I going to get this fight in a way that's going to be beneficial to me. Trying to decide what's the best way to get this fight and set it up. So it's kind of what I'm working on right here. I decided to warp down to the gate at 0. So the Cormorants aren't very valuable. Neither is the Atron. Atron's maybe 2 million, 3 million. Cormorants are 5, maybe 10 at most each. So if I kill everything but the Sabre, then I'm not doing too well. I think the Sabre jumped through. So let's see, I warped to 100. Okay. So that was my first, I guess you could say, gambit, my first strategy. I was going to try to get them to chase me off the gate. I warped to 100 on the gate, hoping that they would all burn for me. If they did, then I would be able to potentially take them down one at a time. And back to what I was saying about the values. And this is a fight where if I lose, even if I kill everything, I still lose on ISK efficiency because they're not very valuable. But the Sabre changes that. If I can kill the Sabre, then in that case, it's the Sabre pretty much costs as much as my ship. So kill the Sabre, and everything else is positive ISK efficiency. So what I ended up doing is warping to a tactical on the Reblier gate. Reblier is a low-sec system. 6 Charlie is the system we're in right now. It's a null-sec syndicate system. Reblier is the low-sec exit. Somewhat busy, but it's not the busiest entrance to syndicate. I think PF is the busiest over by Orville. So I'm warping to a tactical here. And there is bubbles. There are bubbles on the gate. They all follow. So they went to their own tactical. So now I've got to decide, do I want to warp down to that bubble? And I decide yes. So what I'm thinking here is how I can use these bubbles to my advantage. So a lot of times Cormorants are kite setup. They purposefully stay out at 60, 70K with railguns, 80K, maybe even 100. But they stay at range. And by warping down to this bubble, I'm hoping, you can see the Sabres caught back up now, I'm hoping that I can draw them to warp to the bubble. And if they warp to the bubble, then what's going to happen is they're going to be forced to come in close. So it's a way of forcing them in close. Like I'm aligning out of the bubble and starting to move away from the bubble. But I could have just stayed inside the bubble and used that as a way to force them in close. That would have been a strategy. I decide to align to something across the gate so that it takes me straight through the gate, just in case I need to jump through. And I just wait. It's 100% their decision right now whether they take this fight. But, how many is that? That's 5, 6, 7. 7 versus 1. You would think that they would see that as a pretty good fight. I mean, 7 versus 1. Even if it is just destroyers, 7 versus 1. For them, killing a Brutix would be a reasonable expectation. So here comes the Sabre. Sabre warps down to a wreck that's off a little ways from the bubble. So not what I expected. I just continue moving towards the gate slowly, just seeing what they do. The rest of them come in at range on the Sabre. If you see that, they came in what looks like maybe 30K off the Sabre itself, looking like they might end up wanting to kite here. They start to lock. I hit my micro warp drive. So at this point, I wasn't even sure if I was going to take this fight, but I was leaning towards it heavily. I was pretty sure I wanted it. All right, so once the Sabre came in, I decided, well, yeah, I can do this. Worst case scenario, I kill that Sabre before I die, and I end up with an okay fight. Not amazing, but okay. So I decided, let's go for the Sabre, and let's see if we can just crush that really quick and see what everything else does. If they kite, maybe I can MJD. Turns out they're not kites. They're coming in close. All right, so they're blaster fit. You can see in the damage notifications. Tech 1 blaster fit. Sabre goes down real fast. And so now it's pretty much a race. So at this point in the fight, it's just a race to see how fast I can kill these guys. If I'm quick enough in my execution, this all comes down to how fast I can cycle target to target as they die so that I can kill them before I die. Because you know they're all overloading, doing everything they can to try to kill me. But this is one of the reasons that I got addicted to this Brutix, is because right now they have already lost this fight. But, you know, and let's rephrase that. If I was in a armor tanking Brutix right now, I would be repping their damage. Most likely I could rep all of it or most of it, and I would be repping, and they would get discouraged and just all leave. But because I'm a whole tank, they think they've got me. He's in structure. Come on, overload, kill him. They overcommit themselves. They overextend and stay longer than they should. So I don't even have to have them pointed, even though they've kind of bubbled themselves. I can just sit here and work my way through all of them, and they're all committed. They're all in it to the end. So that makes for a really cool fight. You see, I just tried to get my MJD off, which, you know, wussing out. That's not cool. To the death. So I'm going, low structure now, trying to execute. You can see my drone split and went over to another target without me realizing it. So now I'm just going to let them work on that, and then I'm going to finish him really quick with just one shot. Now I'm down to just 2 targets. The incoming damage has been decreasing throughout this entire fight, but now it's dropped down to a very low increasing damage. And so now, with that last Cormorant down, I see that I've won this fight. And so now the name of the game is lock as many pods as possible so that I can drop them really quick. Now my assumption is that this bubble is going to stay and not go down like it just did. But still, let's put DPS on one, point on the other. I didn't get point off on that one in time. What I was going to try to do is DPS, drones, and then point on the last one so that I could try to spread over as many as possible and kill as many of the pods as I could. I think I only ended up getting 1 pod, so not as good as I had hoped. You can see there I went ahead and hit my MJD. The reason for that, I think, is that I think there's some rats on the field still shooting at me or something. Something's shooting. So I decided to go ahead and get away from the gate, just in case something comes in. I mean, I'm at 8% structure, so I need to get safe and make sure that the littlest ship could kill me right now. I'm absolutely vulnerable to anything. I left a pod there on the gate. Should have killed that. But overall, it was an amazing fight. What happens here, I mean, we're not going to watch the rest, but what happens here is I end up warping to station to repair, but I'm very careful going to station because there's usually a bubble from this gate to the station. And like I said, just a single Tech 1 frigate could probably finish me off at this point, potentially. So yeah, I got the pod, Atron, 6. Oh wow, it's not 5, it's 6 Cormorants and the Sabre. So that's a pretty good fight. That's what got me hooked on this ship. That's the ideal fight that you want to look for, or something like that. And I know odds are you're not going to run into that exact fight, but you're going to find things similar, and that kind of shows what you're capable of. And just focus on dropping targets as fast as you can. But it was a cool fight.